Hey guys, so we're back with the red MR2. It is not my MR2, but it is a red MR2. And I mentioned that we would be doing some work on this car. So it is actually a 2GR swapped MR2. So there you go. These turbo lids squeak a lot, so pardon that. But anyways, this is the 2GR. Now you have seen me work on this car before. We did an alternator. That was what I was hoping would be the video that broke the internet. Alternator swap on a 2GR, but didn't seem to do it that well. But nevertheless, I know a lot of folks are not changing alternators yet, but there is a video on this car changing the alternator inside the vehicle. So anyways, it's a 2GR swap car, runs really well. There are a couple things I have to do on this car. Suspension work, we're going to replace pretty much everything. Brakes, we're going to replace everything. I'm going to show you all the parts that we have available for it. There is a Wilhelm geometry kit as well, and then this engine is actually the valve cover is leaking on the back. So it had the Felpro gaskets. I'm not knocking Felpro, but for whatever reason they're leaking. So we're going to switch them out for factory Toyota OEM valve cover gaskets. But that's not what we're doing today. Today we're going to start working on the suspension. I just mentioned a bunch of stuff that we're going to do on this car, so it's going to take a few videos. Today, the idea is I'll introduce the parts, we'll probably take the suspension down, take the brakes down, and then in the upcoming videos, we'll reinstall everything and then, see what it looks like. So with that said, let's move over to our parts bin here. Let me show you what we have in store for this red MR2. All right, so here we have it. There's a whole spread of parts, lots of money on my new clean floor. And hey, this stuff is pretty cool. If you grew up in the time of Fast and Furious, where before Fast and Furious you dreamt about having stuff in your garage, this is it, right? We got suspension, we got brakes, geometry kit. It's just amazing. So anyways, what we have here, I've never used these or installed these, but these are the Pham 808 coilovers. It has some Swift springs. And I'm not sure if these are preloaded. Looks like they're preloaded. So I'm going to go ahead and install them as is, as they came in the box. Everything seems tight, and there you go. 808 Pham. Hey, can't believe I'm installing your parts. I've been watching you with MR2s. You've inspired a lot of us, so it's kind of cool that I'm doing this. It does come with the bolt, the camber, or whatever, camber bolt here on the top for all of them. So we'll use those as we do the install. And again, really nice piece, very solid piece. The paintwork looks good, the materials look nice, obviously Swift springs. And then for the front, you have the adjustment for the camber right here. So that is pretty cool. So looking forward to installing these guys. On the rear, very similar adjustments on the top hats. I believe there are adjustments here. You can adjust the dampening on the coilover. And again, just real solid, beefy material. So, very good quality. I've heard good things about how they ride. So I'm going to say, let's look forward to seeing what that is. In our own experience, we'll give the review once these are installed. But from the looks, it's a 10 out of 10. It looks solid and it looks great. Finishes are really nice. Paint is really nice. So 10 out of 10 for now. And that's our coilover system. So we have all four corners as you see laid out. It does come with adjustable end links as well. So they're in this bag. So adjustable end links, we'll have to figure out how we're going to install these. Personally, I like the ones that are fixed. You just put them in and done, but I guess this is race car setup, so got to do the adjustments. So we're going to have to bring the car down, install these. So this will be a little bit of an extra process. And of course, it has the wrenches to adjust the ride height once we get it on the ground. So I'm going to assume that Pham has these things set, so hopefully it's good enough for when we install it and not much adjustment, but we'll have to wait and see. So let's move on to the brakes. All right, so the next set of parts we have, as you can see, is, you're probably familiar with these. These are the Wilwood Superlights, very popular upgrade on the MR2. Now this kit is from MR2 Heaven. So this is their big brake kit, Wilwood calipers. Now these obviously have been powder coated. The individual who owns this car wanted to have them in this color, and I think they came originally, I know the factory color is the silver, which honestly I like the silver. I think it would have gone very well with the red car, but that's his preference. So he wants to go with the green, and it matches the valve covers that he has on the car. So green it is. Now, they were powder coated, and I don't know about you guys, I'm not a big fan of powder coating these things because, and I guess it all depends on the shop that does it, but if you look at the pistons, everything was powder coated here. Personally, I don't like that. I wish they would have taped all of this up, but that's what they did, and they actually pulled everything apart and painted these things. The paint looks good, but again, I'd rather keep it from the Wilwood factory, but this is the color that we have. Now on the fronts, you'll see, going back to the pistons, these are a little bit bigger than what I'm going to show you on the rear. So the pistons on the front are a little bit bigger. 2 pistons on either side, so this should give you a lot more stopping power than what we currently have. And then the kit comes with the stainless brake lines. We have EBC brake pads. That is a part number if you're interested. And I believe for front and rear is the same. So front and rear uses the same set of pads, okay? All right, looking at the rear calipers, and then come closer up, I'll show you. This is a rear caliper. You can see the size difference of the rear caliper versus the fronts. So the calipers, I mean, are the same, but the pistons are a little bit different. So these are smaller, fronts are bigger. So that's the main difference I see here. Otherwise, everything looks pretty much the same. Now let's talk about the rotors. All right, so for the rotors, your 2-piece rotors. It has this anodized finish, the hat, and then we have the actual body of the rotor right here. They are marked, so if you look at this thing, this will tell you this is a rear big rig kit. And you know, again, the rotors, it tells you left side, all of that good stuff. So this one basically is a rear hat. Then it tells you based on the hooks what side goes on the left, what side goes on the right. So in terms of front and rear, I have the front. I'm going to lift up the front over here, bring it over just to compare. They're pretty much the same size. So pretty large rotors. These should look awesome on the car. And again, like I said, it gives you direction. You can see right here, it shows you rotation. So it tells you what it is. And the hats to also tell you whether it belongs to the front or the rear. So very, very nice piece. A little bit of overkill if you're not racing the car, in my opinion. But yeah, hey, it's cool and I love it. It looks great. Now you guys probably figured this out. And before I move on to the e-brake, all these calipers come with an adapter. So these are the adapters for the front. So this allows you to bolt these big brake kit onto the MR2, because again, these are not designed for an MR2. Basically, MR2 Heaven or whoever, Wilhelm, Prime, TCS, all these guys are buying the Wilwood caliper and then using their own adapters to make it work on an MR2. So the kit comes with all the adapters for the front, comes with all the hardware. These are the adapters for the rear and the hardware, so fully covered here. Now let's move on to e-brake setup. Again, Wilwood does the e-brake setup, so they're separate. So essentially I have 2 calipers on the back, one for the main brake, and then this one is dedicated just for e-brake setup. There are some brackets as well that come with the kit, 2, one for either side, and we have the necessary hardware to install it. Now, the original e-brake cables that are on the MR2, I don't believe they work. So the kit is also supplied with e-brake cables. So we'll be doing new e-brake cables as well to get these bad boys here to work. And as with the fronts, we have stainless steel brake line. So very comprehensive kit, looks really nice. And you know, I think this thing is gonna look awesome and it should handle well. So that is what we're gonna install. But before we install everything, we gotta rip everything out of the car. So in an effort to keep this video, you know, not too long and timely where I don't lose you guys, today we're just introducing the parts and then we're going to remove the suspension. Real quickly, I'll show you this geometry kit. It's from Wilhelm Racing. It's a bunch of parts, which honestly, I just want to tell you guys that I have it here. It has the control arm. What did I say is a control arm? I'm going to show you guys on the vehicle itself. But it has the arms on the back. It has adjustment for the steering arm on the front, and I need some tools to be able to install this, so this will come in a separate video by itself, but that is also here. If you're into MR2s, you probably know about this kit, so you know, you'll see this coming up, but for today we're not going to give it too much love. We're going to keep it in the box, and we'll get to that in a later video. So with that said, guys, let's move on to the vehicle. Let's start ripping the old suspension and brakes out. So before we jump onto the car, let's just wrap up the caliper and the rotors that I mentioned we're going to install. So here's the caliper, and the only thing, when you get this supplied, whether it's painted or not, whatever original finish, you're still gonna have to do what I'm about to show you. So the caliper will come finished just like this, and then you have to thread this fitting into the side of the caliper, in the back of the caliper. Now this would typically be found in your brake line kit, so you can just remove this, and if you look at it, there is this end that goes on the outside. This is where your brake line is going to basically bolt into, and then the other end is threaded into here. Now in my case, these were powder coated, and I remember when I did my brakes with the original I supplied, you know, getting these in, the thread started pretty easy, but then it was very tight going in. So that's basically what it is, and then we're gonna run this in. It doesn't go in too far, I can tell you that much, but I like to put some thread tape on these ends here just to make sure, you know, some insurance in terms of leaks, etc. So I'm going to put some thread tape on here. I'm going to screw this in, and then that will be basically completed with the caliper before basically ready for it to be installed onto the car. Now I did watch a YouTube video that basically says when you're putting on thread tape, the last 2 threads should be free, and then that's so it seals properly. I don't know if true that is, but I'm going to do it for insurance here. So there you go. Just kind of leave the first or second thread exposed and then bolt this thing in. Yeah, I probably got 1.5 exposed, but whatever. We'll work with it. The idea is you want to put it there so it doesn't get bound inside of here. So now we're going to go carefully thread this in. You do not want to start putting torque on this until you get a good feel that you've gotten it by hand. And then you can apply your 7/16 wrench and just basically screw these guys in. See how easy that is? It should not be binding. Should go in relatively easy. Now these I had to clean a little bit of dust and crap that was inside of the area this is being threaded in, because these were powder coated, which again is a reason why I am not a fan of powder coating. I love the color, but I love the fact that you can customize your brakes, but I don't know, I just feel like get it in the right color from the factory, which I know they'll probably have to do, but I'm sure they test it better than we can here on the shelf. Okay, all right, so I got my caliper, and there you go, from the end here to the tip here. If I look, I'm at 25mm. The rest of them I tightened it down to like 23mm. I know it's overkill, but I wanted to have some tolerance as to making sure, one, I can get these as tight as I can, and two, I'm not going too far in. So I'm gonna run these in a little bit more. It's very, very tight, fairly tight to get them in, but you know, the key thing is that it's properly threaded and you're not cross-threaded going in. So here we go. Right at 25, so I think I can do one more turn. Let me see, I don't want to force it too much. That feels about solid. And let's see where we are. 24.5. I'm going to give it one more turn and I'm going to call it a day. If it leaks, we can always tighten it, but I don't want to go too hard on it. That I'm comfortable with. And that is that. Let's go work on the rotors now. All right, so these rotors are supplied with oil all over them. So they're in this sealed, vacuum sealed bag. So we're going to cut it open. And you got to make sure you clean off this oil. So I'm going to use some carburetor cleaner to get it cleaned up. The hat's nicely packaged, I must say, and this is basically how the hat comes, separate, and it does say, as I mentioned, the rear, so it tells you exactly where it goes, and it comes, even the boxes are labeled front and rear. They look the same, but I assume they're actually different. They're slightly different, but they pretty much look the same. So now we're gonna get this done. As you can see, it is oily, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna get some paper towels, a little bit of carb cleaner. Go around, and we're gonna wipe these down. Now I'm just gonna wipe this down for the install here. Before I put them on, I'm probably gonna wash these with dishwashing liquid just to make sure I get all the grease off. Again, might be overkill, but that is how I do it. So wipe these off, and we're gonna flip to the other side. Put my little bag here, and do the same. All right, very minor detail, but what I did was, since these have writings here and they have writing on the rotors, I kind of did all of them opposite. You could do it like this, you could do it like this, or you could probably just not care, but I think that's a nice touch. just setting everything up where it's uniform. So you basically drop the supplied hex bolts in place. And then these are jet nuts that are going to go on the back, and we're going to torque these down to 18 foot-pounds. So fairly simple. I thought these would have been required like wiring, like, you know, aviation wire or something in the back. I know a lot of race cars do that, but I'm kind of happy that this is what it is because it's easier to do. So just gonna get it up on the side. Now these blocks, as I mentioned, I'm thinking it's really to get these things spaced like that. So that was going in, and what I did was I put some tape here. Assuming I'm doing this right, because I don't see any other purpose these things could serve. And I just kind of tape them in here. So when I put it up on the side, I know for sure that these things are centered and we won't have any vibration issues when we are installing them. So I'll just kind of set it up like this. So if the hat wanted to fall a little bit, these blocks just keep it centered. The other two, I don't worry about those because technically I don't see the difference. You come on the back, let me bring you guys on the back, we can see what's going on. So on the back, as you see, these things are in place, so it just kind of keeps everything nicely balanced. And these are 8 jet nuts for the 8 hex bolts. So we really just kind of thread them on here. And then we're going to tighten everything down, torque everything, as I said, 18 foot-pounds. And that's really the preparation for your calipers. So I'm just going to do this. You guys know exactly in terms of a description how it works, so you can do this on your own. This is what I do. I just kind of turn the rotor on the edge of the bench and just keep tightening these. Now I would not recommend an impact. This is very light duty. This electric wrench I'm using. And again, I had my spacers in, so now it's locked in on 2 sides, so fairly comfortable going around and getting this done. So I'm just going to work my way around all 8 of these. I kind of stagger them a little bit so I'm not tightening everything. That way no side gets more force or tightening than the next. All right, 18 foot-pounds of torque. It's very clumsy, to be honest with you, but especially if you're doing it by yourself, but it can be done. And basically just go around just like that and get all of them torqued down, and we are done with the caliper here. So now we can definitely move on to stripping out the suspension. All right, so we're finally on the car, and I'm going to start with the rear of the vehicle. So this section, I'm trying to get the parts off, but I'm not going to take the strut fully out. I'm going to loosen everything, because if I take the strut out, then basically the spindle is going to be free flowing and it could pull the axle out of the transmission, which I don't want to have happen. Now this is a E153 transmission, so it is locked in place on this side, but the other side is a little bit different. So anyways, I'm going to leave the struts in place, and then when I go to replace it, we'll simply just drop them out because everything is loose. I'm putting new ones in. And again, just to make sure that when this piece here, the spindle, falls back, if I remove the strut, it doesn't pull on the axle too much. So I just don't want to put a strain on the axle. So that's the reason why you're not going to see the strut fully out. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is pull the brake line, because we got to get the brakes off because you're replacing those. And then I'm going to pull the sway bar link and the 2 strut bolts here. And that should loosen everything. We should be able to get the rotor, brake off, and the strut in a position where we can easily remove it. So let's start by pulling the brake lines. I have a little bucket to catch the fluid under here. All right, so we are on the rear passenger side. I did bleed the brakes a little bit, so I put my bleeder on the caliper, on the bleeder nut here, and just basically pull some of the brake fluid out so I don't have too much fluid dripping. I'm trying to keep my floor clean, 1, and 2, just don't want to create a mess. All right, so that's done. As you can see, it's dry because I bled the bleeder, so that really helps. On the other side, I just have some bags catching any fluid that may fall, and we're good to go. So now I'm going to pull these 2 12mm nuts to kind of remove the brake line from the chassis. Now these brake calipers, sorry, the brake hose is normally have a clip in place here, but this one doesn't have it. I'm just trying to slide this down and then we can slip it out to this groove so we separate the brake from the strut. So next up, we got to get the e-brake cable out. There's a little pin on the bottom. So we're going to pull a clip that's holding it, pull this pin out right here. And then we can slide e-brake cable off the brakes. And then there's a, if you see this pin right here, we're going to push this out so we can free the cable from the brake assembly. There it is. So now the cable is free. Just going to slide it back and push it off to the side. So now we can pull their two 17mm bolts, one on the top, one on the bottom. Right here, we're gonna pull these, and then we should be able to get this brake caliper out and the rotor off. All right, there we go. We have our caliper off. Now we're not using this back. I'm gonna put these nuts back in and we're gonna back these things up so we can give it back to the owner of this nice red MR2. And the rotor just simply pulls off. So now we're seeing more. So all we gotta do is pull these two bolts, pull the end link, and then there are 3 bolts on top. I'll show you. Once that's, if you pull everything here, then the strut is loose. You can just simply remove it. So for me, I'm just prepping it. I'm just gonna pull these bolts, and next time we come back, it's just easy breezy going back in. All right, so as I mentioned, we're gonna have to pull this end link bolt and these two. So I'm gonna do it. And basically we're gonna leave it in place and we're done with the rear. We're gonna move on to the front. Moving on to the front is honestly it's probably a little bit easier. So there's a clip here for the brake line. We're gonna pull the brake hose up here as we did in the rear. So let's do that. I don't think any fluid is gonna come from this because I bled it again. Let's see. All right, so definitely if you can bleed your brakes, do that. That way you'll avoid having fluid drain all over your nice floor, especially if you have it as clean as I do right here. Now we're gonna pull this clip out. Then we have our 17mm bolts in the back here, inside the rear, one on the top, one on the bottom. And I'm tightening, so we gotta go the opposite direction. There we go. Top bolt is out. Now we gotta get to the bottom. So we're gonna free this brake hose up on the top. And one of these little clips, sometimes they're easy to come in, sometimes they're a little bit stubborn. But just gotta work it in, work it out, and eventually it comes right out. There you go. Now we have this hose off. And there's another clip right here. I might need a smaller screwdriver for this. Let me get a smaller screwdriver to pry this clip off, and we slide the entire hose down. Just gonna get in here. And these clips tend to fly, so be careful. If you're gonna reuse them, you wanna be gentle with it, just like this. And you pull it off, and then this entire entire hose will just go down like that. And we have another clip here. And now we just slide the entire thing down. Just like that. All right, so the brake is essentially free. Now we can go remove it from the car. All right, on the home stretch, let's take this front caliper and rotor off. Let's try to get it off in one assembly. There you go. And now we should be able to slide our rotor out, and there you go. So I'm gonna bag these things. Now, we're gonna actually take this strut out. We'll just have the spindle here just hang. So we're gonna pull the 2 strut bolts at the bottom, and then we're gonna go on top. There are 4 12mm bolts on the top, and I'm gonna slide this thing out. There's also a sway bar end link, which is right in the corner, right behind, well, in the back of the strut. I'll show you that right now. It's kind of hard to get you from the angle, so we'll come around the front, show you that. And then this is prepped and ready to get the new brakes and new struts installed. All right, the best part of the project, close to the end, because it is so hot in the garage. It really isn't too much fun in the summertime here. But we'll pull the end links on the front. It's a 14mm nut, and that frees the strut from the sway bar. So now we're gonna go pull these 2, and then we'll move up to the top, and we'll just drop this thing out. All right, same drill like in the back. We're gonna pull the strut bolts. And this bolt is trying to kick my butt, but I got it. All right. Man, that was tight. My impact couldn't get to it. All right, these nuts, we'll use them back with the new kit for the coilovers, and then we're gonna use about 1 of these bolts because Pham supplies 1 of the bolts on the top, so we'll use the bottom one for the kit. All right, the top hat is loose, and now we're just gonna go under, slide out the strut, and we're done. All right, so we have our sway bar link loose, the top hat is loose, so now just have 1 bolt sitting in here. Now we're gonna sort of slide this out. And this bolt has been a pain in the butt. This is the one that was so tight. And then we just basically take our strut down, and it's out. All right, guys, so that's it for today. Again, I wanted to make this video as detailed as I could, showing the parts and then kind of showing how you rip the suspension out, because it is part of the process if you're going to replace your suspension. Like I said, we're going to have to split this into 2, so we're going to close out today. That is all your parts, ripping out the suspension, showing you how it's done. And now we're going to move into our next video. So we're going to film this right after this. For now, you guys are going to hang with me till next week. And then we're going to film the install, so you guys will see how it all goes back in. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.